Excited to talk with Anthony Broom a little bit later on today. Welcome to the second hour of X's and Bros on this Tullymore Tuesday, and it's Championship Tuesday. Anthony Broom covers the Wolverines for the Wolverine on 3, formerly SB Nation. He tweeted this out earlier this morning. He's had a long day, so he's going to join us at 8:35. He said Michigan played only 2 games this year under 65 possessions. Lost them both. Purdue 62, or I'm sorry, Duke 62, Purdue 63. Okay? Last night, Michigan had 65 possessions. And they, as he put, needed every single one of them. I don't disagree with that. I'm excited to hear his perspective. It's going to be a lot of fun to hear how he had what he has to say. I thought it was really important that Michigan had tempo and was able to play with possession. We talked about that, and quite honestly, not to pat ourselves on the back, but yesterday, this is what Andy and I discussed. We talked about the point guards. They were going to be the difference, and Elliot Cadeau was. Michigan's defense was just phenomenal last night. I mean, that's the thing. Can you truly look at that? And we're on YouTube now and Facebook and on X as well, broadcasting live. So good job by Andy McDonald and Brett Hayes to get us on. So we welcome your comments in the chat at any point in time. So feel free. But I mean, that's the whole concept of what Michigan was able to do. And that's what made them so dangerous all season long. When you say a team has no weakness, oftentimes we're referring to the offensive side of the ball. We refer to they can beat you with the 3. They can beat you inside. They can beat you with tough 2s. They can beat you with their depth. They can beat you with their strength. But 8 of their points last night were from in the paint or at the free throw line. That is bully ball. But the reason they're so damn good is really because of their defense. They were the number 1 defensive efficiency team in the nation. Offensively, they were top 10. I forget where that ranked. And by the way, just before break, I said the 37 wins ties a Big Ten record. But all that truly matters, if you're going to be considered the best the conference has ever had, any conference, not just the Big Ten, any conference, you have to win it all. Illinois in 2004-5, I said 8-9, I was way off. It was 2004-5. Under Bruce Weber was 37-2. How many people remember them? It's okay, be honest. Folks, I called those games. I was part of the conference. Michigan had a really good, or Michigan State had a really good year that year. They were ranked 15th in the country. They had 13 Big Ten wins. They were 13-3. They were 26-6 overall. Really good. I remember D. Brown and Darren Williams and Luther Head. Those guys were really good. James Augustine was one of their big guys. Brian Randall was one of their big guys. All right. Sean Pruitt inside used his strength. They were an excellent basketball team. 37-2. Here, they stumbled twice. They lost a point to Ohio State, and they lost to North Carolina in the championship game. That's how good that Illinois team is. Do you remember them? You don't. You know why? They didn't win it. They're in the Final Four. They were in the championship game. They lost to North Carolina by 5 in St. Louis. Michigan State was also in the Final Four that year. So Michigan State fans remember that their team came up short. Illinois fans remember their team came up short. 37 wins. That's insane. You've got to win it all. The Tigers can never say, well, that team was the best there was, and they made it to the World Series, led by Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer, but they lost to the Giants, or they lost to the Cardinals, 2006. Can't say that. 84 goes, we've got a ring. 68 says we get a ring. 35 and 45, they had rings.
And that's the reason that you keep hearing about the 84 season, because they haven't won one since.
Absolutely. Who's the best Red Wings team of all time? It's debatable, right? They've got 11 cups. Is it the 1996 Red Wings? Because statistic-wise, Andy, they were the best team in NHL history at that time. Boston surpassed them a few years ago. But the 1996 Detroit Red Wings had more points than anybody else in the history of the sport. You know what the problem is? They lost in the Western Conference Finals to the Colorado Avalanche, who ended up winning the Stanley Cup that year. You don't remember that. You remember the Stanley Cup teams. And I get it.
Yeah, it's all everybody ever talks about in the end. It seems like if you don't win it, then you're never going to get the credit for all the wins that you did. Kind of like the Illinois team you're talking about getting 37 wins. I mean, if you don't finish it off with the championship, people aren't going to talk about you the same. I think what you said about Michigan State with their fans, they'll remember them making that Final Four, but because they didn't win it, they have a degree of wanting to win championships. They have a standard of wanting to win championships, right? So those fans aren't going to think about it the same because they didn't win it.
Those fans will never say that team that lost in the national championship game to North Carolina at Ford Field is the best Michigan State team of all time. Nobody says that. They say 2000 or 79. That's the debate. You debate championships. You don't debate regular season wins or coming up short in the biggest moments. You want to feel the aura of that team. That's why last night, I give Dusty May a ton of credit for saying this. When people asked him about certain things, he's like, hey, that's for the Trey Burke block. In other words, he did some history. In 2013, Trey Burke had a clean block on Peyton Siva of Louisville. But it was called a foul. It was outrageous that it was called a foul. But whatever. People who are commenting oftentimes on social media about this team, they bring up John Beilein helping pave the moment. Freddie texted us that earlier. How about the players who've paved the way? Stu Douglas, Zach Novak, Manny Harris, Jordan Morgan, guys like that. I mean, Morgan played in a championship game, but Manny Harris didn't. Stu Douglas didn't. Zach Novak didn't. But Deion Harris, Lester Abram, Deshaun Sims, those guys helped pave the way. They took a chance. I remember having a debate with a friend of mine at a radio station in Detroit. And it was early in John Beilein's career at Michigan. And Beilein had brought in Zach Novak and Stu Douglas. Guys' numbers are not going to be retired. They're not going to hang from the rafters at Chrysler Center. But they were good players. They were tough players. They made big shots. The problem is nobody else wanted them. Valparaiso was the only scholarship offered to Zach Novak before Beilein offered it to him. And this friend of mine, who was a coworker as a talk show host, said no other Big Ten team would want a guy like that. Year plays out. Novak shows his toughness and his grit and shows his leadership. And I said, you think any coach would want that guy now? And the guy's like, yeah, I guess so. Stop judging people based on, their height and their weight and the fact that they were at that time a little bit overmatched depending on the position he played. They helped pave the way for sure. Those guys don't get rings, but those guys have an incredible amount of pride right now for sure. We're brought to you this hour by Meijer. Our first hour is brought to you by Mitch Lyons Wealth, but we're brought to you by Meijer here on a Tullymore Tuesday. This is X's and Bros. Anthony Broom joins us at 8:35. We are glad you can share some of your Tullymore Tuesday with us here throughout the great state of Michigan. Stay with us.
Mitch Lyons here, founder of Mitch Lyons Wealth, where we create your best game plan to protect, grow, and win retirement. I'm here with Tiger legend Kirk Gibson, who we are proud to support and partner with on the newly opened Kirk Gibson Center for Parkinson's Wellness.
Thanks, Mitch. We appreciate your support, and we are excited to have recently opened the center in Farmington Hills. It provides exercise therapy and educational programs that are helping the Parkinson's community. Just like Mitch Lyons Wealth helps improve the quality for their clients' retirements, this center helps improve the quality of life for people with Parkinson's.
And Gibby, the best part of all is that access to the center is available to the Parkinson's community free of charge, right?
That's right, absolutely free of charge for people with Parkinson's and their care partners.
You hit a couple of the most famous home runs in Major League history, Gibby, but I feel that your greatest hit will be the positive impact the Kirk Gibson Center is making in the fight against Parkinson's.
Mitch, since my diagnosis, I get up every day and focus on winning that day. This center encourages others to do the same.
Awesome, Gibby. To learn more, go to kirkgibsoncenter.org.
Hear that? That's the sound of saving a good deal more when you shop with M-Perks at Meijer. Some delicious Cosmic Crisp apples, money saved. Meijer Essential Paper Towels, that's money saved. Savings, savings, savings. Because every dollar spent is also points earned in M-Perks, which you can use to save on your next grocery trip or up to $1 off per gallon on your next tank of gas. At Meijer, we work hard to help you save a good deal more for a whole lot less. That's bringing more good to life. Exclusions apply. See mperks.com for details.
Farrah's Coffee has been family owned and operated for over 100 years. Its popular Den Blend and Dark Roast is more than coffee and more than the official coffee of the Detroit Lions. It's a call to rise. Farrah's Coffee and the Lions are the perfect match. They embrace those who show up early, cheer loud, and never back down. Den Blend is perfectly roasted in Grand Rapids and provides the ultimate fuel for fans who wake up and roar. Whether you're tailgating at the game or cheering from your couch, Den Blend is your go-to coffee for your game day ritual.
What's up, Michigan? You're listening to my good friend Shep. The Huge Show is coming up later today at 3, right here on the Michigan Sports Network.
would 17, 18-year-old Sean May, who was a McDonald's All-American, NBA player, All-American, all of it, would he want to play with Elliot Cadeau? And he said, would 17, 18-year-old Sean May, who was a McDonald's All-American, NBA player, All-American, all of it, would he want to play with Elliot Cadeau? And he said, explicative, yeah, absolutely, let's go. And I said, that's all I need to know, because Sean is one of the smartest, best players I've ever been around. And so I valued his opinion that much. And that was a stamp on the intangibles and whether I thought we could win this with him, because on film it was there. I mean, he's a savant and he's brilliant. And so he's made us better coaches, and hopefully we've helped him become a better player.
Dusty May following the game, talking about Elliot Cadeau, the most outstanding player. Again, this is one of those really cool stories. We see it all the time in sports. We see guys score touchdowns in Super Bowls you never thought would be there. You see guys being named MVPs of a certain game that you never thought at any point would be able to do that. And last night was probably that indication for Elliot Cadeau, who proved a lot of people wrong. I love stories like that. Love it, right? Good text here, and you could text to Sports Radio 21,000. Feel free. Shep, when you finally, in 97, you referenced the Red Wings. In 97, when you finally win it after years of trying to get through trials and tribulations, that's what makes it most special. Amen. In 1997, the Wings broke the 42-year-old curse. Maybe it wasn't a curse. The 42-year-old drought of winning the Stanley Cup. Red Wings had not won a Stanley Cup since 1955. And in 1997, they went out and, under Scotty Bowman, won the Stanley Cup Finals against the Philadelphia Flyers in a sweep. I covered that team, and I covered that series before they won the next year in Washington and beating the Capitals. Why I bring that up from 97 is because the year before, as I mentioned, the 62 wins and the 131 points. Think of that for a moment. 131 points. The following year, they had 94 points and they won the cup. The year after that, they had 103 points and won the cup. In 2002, when they won the Stanley Cup, they had 116 points. When they won the Stanley Cup in 2008, they had 115 points. 115 points is a lot. They had 131 points and didn't win at all. Everybody was picking them. They didn't win at all. I'll put it in perspective for you. Right now, it's the Colorado Avalanche who lead the NHL in points with 110. They've had an incredible year. They've only got 16 losses. They got 50 wins. Detroit had 62 wins and 131 points in 1997 and didn't win it. I shouldn't say you don't, because I'm sure there's a lot of you who probably do, but you remember the Cup winners. And I don't blame you. 97, 98, 02, 08, 09, they were really good. They had 51 wins in 09. They lost in the finals to Pittsburgh in Game 7 at home. Still can't believe Nick Lidstrom's shot didn't go in. Do you remember him? No. Now, you long for those days, without a question. Hell, you long for 2016 when they lost in the first round and they had 93 points. They haven't had that many points since. Shep, imagine if Leland had won in 06. That team would have been so special on how they got there from 2003 to the first pitch versus St. Louis. It would have been, I'm not going to try to tell you it would have been the best team of all time in Tigers history. I would say 1984. It's hard to deny that. When you start 35-5, and you win your first 17 road games, you win the division going away. Actually, Toronto made a push. And you do what they did to Kansas City and San Diego. It shows you how far baseball has evolved. You only played, it was the American League East against the American League West, and it was the best 2 out of 3. And Detroit beat Kansas City in the first 2 games. And then it was the World Series, and they played San Diego, who upset the Cubs. It's hard to deny that team. But I would say this. Detroit in general, the 2016, had they won that, it might have been people's favorite. Only because from which they came.
I mean, that's my first memory right there for sure. I mean, like of any significance of the Tigers was in 2006. That was like, if they would have, and I'll always think about the Maglio home run, but at the same time, you think about how they didn't finish the job. And I think that's just kind of been the thing going forward. That's because in 2003, they won 43 games. Yeah, exactly. Like, okay. The call of, Dan Dickerson's was the greatest turnaround in baseball history. I think it lives in my head every time you see that home run, because it is true, but it is true. And it's a team that has what was a very likable team. That's kind of hard to find these days. A team that not only do you like as a champion, but you like the players. So on that team, people love the fact that Ivan Rodriguez signed in Detroit. I can't believe you did that. Why? They love the underrated acquisition of Placido Polanco and Carlos Guillen, and the all-around effort from Brandon Inge, and guys like Craig Monroe and Curtis Granderson and Maglio Ordonez, as you mentioned, and Marcus Timms and guys like that. And, of course, with Verlander being homegrown, and Nate Robertson and Jeremy Bonderman being homegrown, and then the sprinkling in of a veteran like Kenny Rogers to help nurture guys along. That's what it was. The domination over the Yankees and the A's, or staring down the Yankees, I should say. Maybe not the domination. They beat the Yankees 3-1. They dominated the A's in a sweep, right? But maybe it was the fact that Yankees, big bad bully on the block, big payroll, all kinds of experience in the postseason. Oh my gosh, there it is again. You got to have experience. UConn had a lot of experience. Didn't help them last night, did it? A couple of years ago, Lions had some experience getting to the NFC Championship game. How'd that help them against Washington? Stop. Give me talent. I want guys who can play. I saw online so many people upset. I can't believe every single starter for the Michigan Wolverines was a transfer. That's sickening. Why? Does it make any difference? Does it make any difference that if you recruited them and nurtured them for 4 years? Do you really look at it that way? It might be something you bring up 10 bullet points down the road when you're talking about your team, but you're not talking about that right out of the gate. You're talking about it if your team does an accomplishment. You're talking about it if you don't like that team. You're talking about it as a way
to take something away from them. That's the only time you're talking about that. That's the way the game is played today. So what?
I mean, didn't Florida have 4 transfers last year on that team?
I don't recall. I'm not sure about that.
I think
here's
so,
what
but
yeah, and to your point then, how many people remember that? Look that up and see if they were, if 4 of them were transfers. Does it truly matter? Does it matter? I guess here, if you wanted to, you could spin it this way. If somebody says, I shake my head because they're all transfers in the Michigan starting lineup. Okay. One guy came from UAB. Did you ever even hear of him? Honestly. Go up to, Andy, go up to a friend of yours at some point who might be pissed off about Michigan starting lineup and how they did that. Okay.
Oh, there's plenty of them. That's for sure.
Okay. So I want you to go up to them and just say, okay, where are they transfers from? Well, Lendenborg's from UAB. Then ask him, what conference does UAB play in? The American Conference, by the way. Ade Mara barely played for UCLA.
Elliot Cadeau couldn't shoot,
Elliot Cadeau was, they literally left him open to shoot like it was Shaquille O'Neal shooting from 3, like it was Andre Drummond shooting from 3. Go ahead and take it. We dare you. Okay? That's what they did. Go ahead and take it. Maybe those guys got better because of the coaching. Did you ever think about that? They weren't superstars transferring. Those were just guys transferring. So they transfer, and then they get better. What does that say? Doesn't that say more about that than anything else? I think it does. Meyer hotline is 866-838-4043. The text line Sports Radio 21,000. We're brought to you by Meyer here on a Tullymore Tuesday.
Huge here for Josh Garvey and his team at Dorn Mayhew, West Michigan. Now, they continue to grow. They got their worldwide headquarters in Troy, Michigan, on the east side of the state. They are worldwide. They are the leaders when it comes to accounting, CPA, and business needs. Simple and easy. Just Google Dorn Mayhew. And also, Josh Garvey joins me every Tuesday as we talk hoops with former Michigan and Cleveland Cavaliers head coach John Beilein. Tuesdays, 5 p.m., Josh Garvey, Coach Beilein, and myself, we talk Michigan, Michigan State, and the Pistons. Talking hoops happens all the way through the NBA Finals. And could you imagine if the Pistons are in the NBA Finals? If you ever have a hoops question for us, you can drop it at Huge Show on Twitter, The Huge Show on Facebook, and Talking Hoops every Tuesday at 5 p.m. presented by one of the world's top accounting, CPA, and business firms, Dorn Mayhew.
Hear that? That's the sound of saving a good deal more when you shop with M-Perks at Meijer. Some delicious Cosmic Crisp apples, money saved. Meijer Essential Paper Towels, that's money saved. Savings, savings, savings. Because every dollar spent is also points earned in M-Perks, which you can use to save on your next grocery trip. Or up to $1 off per gallon on your next tank of gas. At Meijer, we work hard to help you save a good deal more for a whole lot less. That's bringing more good to life. Exclusions apply. See mperks.com for details.
Where are you watching the Tigers this year? Superfly Hayes here for Detroit Sportsnet. Sign up like the Huge Show did with the Detroit Sportsnet Tigers Wings package. Subscription info at tigers.com and MLB.com.
Okay, Andy just looked it up. It's good stuff. He said, Florida, last year, Florida won the national championship, as we all know. 3 of their starting 5 were transfers. So I guess my question would be this, and I don't, this is to each his own, I suppose. How many transfers are too many? I mean, Dusty May said it the other day. He said, people act like this is all we do, that our whole roster is full of them, and it's just not true. 2 guys in the rotation who stayed, another guy who was recruited and brought in, Trey McKinney. I'm not saying it's perfect. I don't know what is. Honestly, I mean, you don't like the way things have changed in the college landscape of sports. Neither do I. But do you sit there and wallow in it and say, I wish it was like it used to be back in the day, and then let your team flounder, not win championships, and say, yeah, but at least we had homegrown product? Do we do that in any other sport? Folks, it is a constant bitch fest about the Detroit Lions and how they are extending their own too soon, that they're not involved in free agency enough. Am I wrong there? Isn't that all we hear about? Andy, bring up the Lions with your friends. How do you think they did in free agency? It sucked. They got 14 guys, 13 of them are on 1-year deals. That sucks. Oh, great. They re-upped with Avante Maddox. Big deal. That doesn't matter to them. You know what matters to them? Winning. How many people looked at the Seattle Seahawks last year and said, boy, I don't know, man. How many of those guys were drafted and developed? You know what I mean? Holy crap, they just let the MVP of the Super Bowl go. He was drafted and developed. You think if Kansas City wins the Super Bowl this year by handing off to K9, Kenneth Walker III, anyone's going to say, yeah, but he was a free agent. I don't think that's a good idea. Why is it college? Oh, because college is supposed to be different? Not anymore. That's not how it works any longer. This is a new college landscape. You may not like it. I may not like it. Us not liking it isn't going to change a damn thing. So we're going to just sit there and try to degrade a team that takes advantage of a system. A lot of those guys went in the transfer portal to find better situations for themselves. Right? That's part of there's a kid at Wisconsin who's from Metro Detroit and is in the transfer portal because he wants to win a national. He wants to contend for a national championship. He wants to go to a program that is all about winning national titles. I'm not saying that's Michigan just because they won this one. I think they've played for more than anybody in the Big Ten recently, by getting to 3. But anyway, anybody going to blame him for that? You want to win, right? Yeah, okay. It's funny how fans will go, I want that coach out of here. I want that general manager out of here. I want that athletic director out of here because I want to win championships. You don't care where that person comes from. You don't care if it comes from a rival. You don't care where. You think people at Michigan State care that J.J. Batt came from Georgia Tech? Hell no. Here's what they care about. Is he going to find the right coaches and support those coaches and their student athletes with NIL to win titles, to compete for championships? That's what they care about. Why is that fine, but the players on the floor can't come from anybody else? North Carolina just hired Michael Malone. Anybody care that they went, quote unquote, outside the family in Chapel Hill? Hell no. Should Michigan care that Dusty May didn't come through the pipeline of what Michigan was all about? Why? Tom Izzo's the greatest coach in Big Ten history. One of them, if not the greatest, one of them. He didn't go to Michigan State. What difference does it make? But is there anybody more green and white than Tom Izzo? Hell no, there isn't.
John Beeline didn't come from Michigan, but plenty of people want to give him a ring right now. So.
Right. Yeah. But the players, they've got to be recruited and developed through the program. What a bunch of hypocrites, man. Somebody had brought up 2006 with the Tigers. Who was a big influence in 2006? Maglio Ordonez. You talked about it, Andy. That's what you remember. You remember that home run against Oakland off Houston Street that got them to the World Series.
I could tell you that was Houston Street through the pitch too, for sure.
Yeah. Was he homegrown? He played for the White Sox, dude.
Nope, they got him. That was kind of their big signing at that point.
Ivan Rodriguez, homegrown?
Nope. Kenny
Rogers, homegrown? Carlos Guillen, homegrown? Placido Polanco, homegrown? Nope, none of them. None of them.
Yep.
One of the best players in Red Wings history was Brendan Shanahan. Homegrown? Nope. Do you mind bringing Chris Chelios over? Hell no. I didn't mind it at all. One of the key contributors to the Pistons this year has been Tobias Harris. Does it matter to you that the Pistons didn't draft him? Please stop. Now, you keep saying to yourself probably, Shep, you're bringing up all professional examples. I'm bringing up the mindset. The mindset is that you don't like a certain team and you're going to find everything you can to try and rip them apart. That's fine. I mean, that's what fandom is. I mean, I think that's almost human nature. But then you won't do it for some of your other favorite teams. Or you won't support a team that has it. Is there any team in this market that is more about drafting and developing than the Detroit Lions? It's the reason you like Penei Sewell and Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's the reason you gravitate towards Sam Laporta and you buy Brian Branch's jersey. It's the reason Jack Campbell might get the next extension and you think Jahmyr Gibbs is the best running back in football. You love them all. I mean, you don't like Christian Mahogany, probably. Do you mind that Cade Mays was signed as a free agent center? I hope not, because he's better than what you had a year ago. How much does being homegrown matter to you when Tyleik Williams isn't playing very well? Not much, but you love it that Aiden Hutchinson, his quarterback pressures and his sacks per game have gone up every single year he's been because he's ours. We drafted and developed him. May seem sweeter to you when they win it all, but I don't think it would matter one damn bit if you signed a few free agents and they help get you to where you want to go. That doesn't matter to you.
People talk about the Tigers rotation all the time. That was, supposedly one of the greatest rotations ever in 2012 with Verlander, David Price, Max Scherzer. I believe Anibal Sanchez was like the ERA leader that year. A lot of those guys weren't homegrown.
Yeah. I don't know when it became this must-have. And I don't think we're alone, by the way. All right? I don't think Detroit and the state of Michigan is alone by any stretch. I think it's one of those situations where, there are some people who just don't like it because they don't like the NIL. I mean, John Beeline says, I embrace the NIL. I just don't want players moving year to year. I don't want that either. I actually like what the federal government is deciding and trying to implement into regulations that, you get 5 years and you can transfer once. The only exception I would make to that is if your coach leaves. A lot of these kids sign. There's a lot of reasons why kids sign where they do. Okay. Moms want the academics. Dad want the athletics. Kids want the performance centers. And are you going to be able to get me to the next level? And are we going to compete for a championship? And what are the amenities? How are those meals? How's the weight room? How's the film room? Little things like that. You know what I mean? I mean, Michigan's going to redo their weight room. Their weight room's unbelievable, but they're going to redo it because, a new strength and conditioning coach wants that. Okay, whatever. That sounds like a wasted way to spend your money to me, but that's up to them. Coaching is one of the reasons many kids decide to where they want to go. There's kids going to Ferris State. Tony Anise is a big reason for it because they play for championships and they're going to continue to play for championships, and those kids want that. And then they get an opportunity to maybe to go to a Power 4 Division I school afterwards. It's embraced. Do you think Ole Miss gave a rat's ass that Trinidad Chambliss came from Ferris State and he wasn't recruited by Ole Miss to start? Hell no. Because they loved watching him play the game of football. I don't want players moving year to year to year to year. I don't like that either, okay? And hopefully they're going to put an end to it. But if a coach leaves and you sign because of that coach, then I think the kid has the right to be able to do that too. Phone number on the Meyer hotline is 866-838-4843. The text line is Sports Radio 21,000. I don't know if I'd go so far as to say it should be celebrated. Okay. But a lot of kids, they enter the transfer portal not just for NIL money. It's a bad assumption on our part. We equate one with the other. Well, they're going into the transfer because they want more money. Not always the case. Sometimes it's based on trying to find a better situation for themselves and going to a better team. And maybe that's the story that should be celebrated. Why isn't it more celebrated that two of those players had to go through an insufferable season a couple years prior, and they stuck it out? Now, I think some mentioned it, but it hasn't gotten as much traction as the fact that all 5 starters are transfers. Ironically enough, one of those, Namari Burnett, is one of the guys who had to suffer through that miserable season with Juwan Howard at the end of his tenure. So that's the thing that I think most people who actually look at this objectively should be strongly considering. Here's the other thing. If you believe in Ken Palm, the Pomeroy ratings, all right, they take the win-loss, they take the net rating, they take the offensive rating and the defensive rating. That's what they do. Michigan was the highest rated national champion in the history of Ken Palm. Highest of all time. At 37-3, they had a net rating of 39.7. They had an offensive rating of 128.2. Only Illinois was higher. Illinois was at 131. Actually, Alabama was slightly higher too. And they had the best defensive rating in college basketball at 88.5. Combined, they were number 1. Just for perspective, Michigan State was number 10. Michigan State was a plus 28.7 in the net rating. So about 11 points difference than Michigan. They were 123 in offensive rating. They were 94.5. So the 123 was ranked 23rd in the country, and their defense ranked 13th. I heard a pretty good interview with Gino Auriemma and Danny Hurley the other day, and they were talking about who they recruit. It could be in the transfer portal. It could be just recruiting in general. And they both agreed. We recruit offensive players. You can work on guys getting better defensively. Push them, move your feet. It's an effort type thing. It's tougher to improve a kid on offense. Maybe the free throw. I remember John Beilein improving Epe Udo's, who ended up transferring to Baylor, ironically enough, and then going into the NBA, improving his free throw percentage immensely. And it was simply by tucking his elbow in a little bit. I was at the practice when they were working on that, which is pretty cool. But defensively, it's a want to. That's a hard thing to teach. Okay? It's like an infield baseball coach once told me. He says, I can help you with your fielding, but your throwing, if you have throwing errors, that's a serious issue. That's a repetitive motion. Everything else, I can help with the feet and all this other stuff. But the throwing, that's a deeper concern. Basketball, these guys want to recruit offensive players. That's why Michigan was so damn tough to beat. They had the offense. They had shooters. They had stretches, as in stretch fours, they had multiple defenders, the guys who could defend multiple positions. You don't have to switch every time when there's a screen. But when you can switch, that's the ideal situation. That way you don't have to crawl over or under screens. Just switch. Say it out loud. Andy covers this guy. I take this guy. That's the beautiful thing about it. That's why but Michigan had offensive players who wanted to play defense. Without sounding too in the moment type guy, this could be one of those situations where this has been established now at their program. What do you always say about Michigan State? Defense and rebounding, baby. Oh, yeah, all day long. Well, Michigan might now be using this as their blueprint. We want offensive guys, but you better be willing to sacrifice and play defense when you get here. When you do, this is what happens. If you don't, you won't be playing. This team may have changed that narrative, that style, that culture, if you will. Well, perhaps it started a couple of years ago. But when it gets paid off in a national championship, you know damn well that others are about to follow. Copycat leagues are real, without question. I love how Dusty May enjoyed it and then said, we're going to turn the page to Detroit. That's pretty cool. That tells you something right there. All right. In the meantime, let's not forget, Alex Caravan for UConn leaves as their all-time winner. NCAA and getting to where he did in the Final Four, hitting as many threes, playing as many games, the impact that he made, right? And I think that's full circle now. That's what comes back to when people are talking about guys who are recruited, guys who are quote unquote homegrown. You feel that. You feel the impact they made on their program. No question. He's made that impact. But he's also led them to championship games and won championships. By doing that, the impact is even greater. I would guess that there's plenty of guys from this Michigan team this year who helped get them to a Sweet 16 a year ago and win a national championship last night that will also have that type of impact on some of the younger players who are on their roster. Quick timeout on a Tully-Moore Tuesday. We're brought to you this hour by Meyer. Bottom of the 8 o'clock hour, Anthony Broom joins us. He was in Indy writing and talking to players and coaches about it. We'll get his philosophy and his thoughts on it as we roll on in the final hour of X's and Bros on a Tully-Moore Tuesday on the Michigan Sports Network, brought to you by Meyer.
The Freddie the Pizza Man Foundation is dedicated to providing support to families and Michigan schools touched by autism. We invite you to join us in supporting these families and schools by making a donation at freddythepizzaman.com. With your donation, you can help provide essential resources that can make a real impact. Visit freddythepizzaman.com to make a donation and to learn more about the foundation's mission. That's FREDI, thepizzaman.com. Together, we can make a difference.
Make sure you listen weekly to our Moving Ferris Forward interviews with Ferris President Bill Pink and other leaders who are moving Ferris forward. Find out more about Big Rapids and Ferris and what they have to offer at ferris.edu.
Where are you watching the Tigers this year? Superfly Hayes here for Detroit Sportsnet. Sign up like the Huge Show did with the Detroit Sportsnet Tigers Wings package. Subscription info at tigers.com and MLB.com.
Huge here for Josh Garvey and his team at Dorn Mayhew, West Michigan. Now, they continue to grow. They got their worldwide headquarters in Troy, Michigan, on the east side of the state. They are worldwide. They are the leaders when it comes to accounting, CPA, and business needs. Simple and easy. Just Google Dorn Mayhew. And also Josh Garvey joins me every Tuesday as we talk hoops with former Michigan and Cleveland Cavaliers head coach John Beilein. Tuesdays, 5 p.m., Josh Garvey, Coach Beilein, and myself, we talk Michigan, Michigan State, and the Pistons. Talking hoops happens all the way through the NBA Finals. And could you imagine if the Pistons are in the NBA Finals? If you ever have a hoops question for us, you can drop it at Huge Show on Twitter, The Huge Show on Facebook, and Talking Hoops every Tuesday at 5 p.m. presented by one of the world's top accounting, CPA, and business firms, Dorn Mayhew.
Mitch Lyons here, founder of Mitch Lyons Wealth, where we create your best game plan to protect, grow, and win retirement. I'm here with Tiger legend Kirk Gibson, who we are proud to support and partner with on the newly opened Kirk Gibson Center for Parkinson's Wellness.
Thanks, Mitch. We appreciate your support, and we are excited to have recently opened the center in Farmington Hills. It provides exercise therapy and educational programs that are helping the Parkinson's community. Just like Mitch Lyons Wealth helps improve the quality for their clients' retirements, this center helps improve the quality of life for people with Parkinson's.
And Gibby, the best part of all is that access to the center is available to the Parkinson's community free of charge, right?
That's right, absolutely free of charge for people with Parkinson's and their care partners.
You hit a couple of the most famous home runs in Major League history, Gibby, but I feel that your greatest hit will be the positive impact the Kirk Gibson Center is making in the fight against Parkinson's.
Mitch, since my diagnosis, I get up every day and focus on winning that day. This center encourages others to do the same.
Awesome, Gibby. To learn more, go to kirkgibsoncenter.org.
Huge here for Van Andel Institute Purple Community. Now, they're a grassroots fundraising network powered by the volunteers who support VAI's mission to improve health now and in the future. Learn more at purplecommunity.org.
lot of love coming Mission's way, and rightfully so. It truly was one of the more impressive things we've seen from the college basketball team in a long time, although it is funny how many people will interview Dusty May after the game before he reaches the podium and call it an exclusive. It's pretty tough to do when you've got a lot of people out there doing something very similar to what you just did. Michigan holding UConn to 31% shooting, forcing 11 turns, 6 blocks, 6 steals. They beat UConn 69-63 for their second ever national championship, and the first for a Big Ten team since 2000. So the Big Ten wins the football championship in Indiana, the women's college basketball team, women's college basketball championship in UCLA, the men's college basketball championship in Michigan, and they have 2 of the 4 teams left in the Frozen Four. What a year it has been for the Big Ten. And football-wise, they've won each of the last 4, right? Or each of the last 3. Michigan, Ohio State, Indiana. Very impressive. Elliot Cadeau named most outstanding player. He and Ade Mara and Morris Johnson were named to the all-tournament team. North Carolina is going to hire Michael Malone, the former Denver Nuggets coach who won 510 games in a championship, as their next head coach. Red Wings take on Columbus tonight. Their draft pick, by the way, Max Plant, who plays for Minnesota Duluth, has been named Hockey News College Player of the Year. Steve Yzerman's not going to trade him. We know that. God forbid Steve Yzerman make a mega deal because of all these great young players. I'd love to see Steve Yzerman go out and do something because it seems like he almost has to. Super aggressive. Out of his usual lane. Austin Matthews might leave Toronto. What would it take? Brady Tkachuk might leave Ottawa. What would it take? He's done, Steve Yzerman's banged on these doors a hell of a lot more than just me thinking of it. But at some point, you may have to mix things up drastically to get it done. The Red Wings thought about doing that with Steve Yzerman when he played, and he was the captain, and going to Ottawa. And they ended up not doing it. Here's the difference. They had pipeline guys who were going to be stars. They had guys within the system. This team, who's the star for this team moving forward? If you get rid of Kopp and you get rid of Comfer and you get rid of Van Riemsdyk and you get rid of Kane and you get rid of certain players, okay? Bernard Docker, see you later. These guys are gone. Who's taking their place? Are they stars? We don't know that. I don't know how they can be stars just yet. They may have to grow into it. But these are the guys that he refuses to get rid of. He doesn't want to include them or any draft picks into a package for a star or a big name player who is excelling right now.
No, and you got like Sebastian Cosa down here in Grand Rapids who still hasn't got a chance up there yet, even with how many games in a row Gibson's played. Obviously, down the stretch, they're probably sticking with who they have at goaltender at this point. Obviously,
how is he not here instead of Talbot?
It's a good question, especially after what you just saw the other day with the 5 goals going in. I think
how long does it take? Yeah. I get the John Gibson thing, Andy. I do. Yeah. I just don't. Kosa's a former first-round pick, right? 15th overall, I believe. He's proven down there that he's one of the best goalies. He's ready. Am I missing something here? Stop me when I'm missing something.
No, you're not. I think everybody's asking themselves the same question when it comes to him, because now you got Trey Augustine coming into the organization, and you're wondering, when is Kosa going to get a chance? And then if he was never going to get a chance, why wasn't he available to be traded or used at the deadline or for a piece like that? Because I think
100%.
With how good it's been, great, the Griffins have been this good, and it's awesome to see they have this much talent in the pipeline. But you feel like at some point, like, is it just a lot of the same players, and they maybe should get rid of them and try to make one of those moves that you're talking about that's maybe out of Steve's comfort zone, because he hasn't done it to this point where he's attempted to trade any of his prospects for a bigger player, especially
Kosa will make this team next year. There's no doubt. It'll be him and John Gibson. And you hope that would be a really good tandem. I'm looking at the everyday lineup guys. I think this is fair to wonder, if they're that good, why aren't they here? And if they're not good enough to beat out certain guys who are lacking inspiration now, how good can they really be? Those are the two things I ask myself.
Yeah, I think
So
Nate
let's
Danielson
see
would
him.
be a perfect example of like what you're kind of talking about right there. People have
Can
talked
Nate-
about him for
can-
years, but why isn't he up if he is that good?
Right. Why can Nate Danielson not beat out Michael Rasmussen?
Absolutely.
I think we've seen enough of Michael Rasmussen to know who he is, right? A massive disappointment. Max Plant will be one of those possible up-and-comers, I suppose. He's been named Hockey News College Player of the Year. Magic blow out the Pistons 123-107. Tigers lose 7-3 to the Twins and are 2 games under 500, although Max Clark was named Minor League Player of the Year. And the Lions have, or of the week, re-upped with safety Avante Maddox. The Mitch Lions Wealth poll question, we have one right now out there, and I've retweeted it as well. Is Michigan's team this year the best college basketball team you've ever seen? Yes or no? Now, it depends on how old you are, right? But I think even those who have seen the great Michigan State teams of the past, 2000, 1979, the great Michigan team of 89, and the great Indiana teams of the mid-70s can speak to it. Don't give me, as we mentioned earlier in the show, don't give me the Illinois team of 0405. Because even though D. Brown was unbelievable, even though Darren Williams was a hell of a player and made a hell of a pro, even though Luther Head was solid and they had some big guys and won 37 games and only lost 2, the second loss was to the national championship game in North Carolina or against North Carolina. Hard to say that. Hard to say that team was better than this Michigan team or the 2000 Spartan team or the 79 Spartan team or the 89 Michigan team. Can't say that because they didn't win it all. Vote as often as you want at XB Mornings. We'll give the results in the 8 o'clock hour tomorrow. Coming up at 8:35, we will be joined by Anthony Broom. He was in Indianapolis last night covering this game, covering this team, and he's covered the team all season long. So looking forward to bringing him on board as well to see exactly his perspective. He says, we got a text. Shep, I'd love to see Stevie trade one of those goalies we've been hearing about for years in a big deal to bring back a big-time player. Then I will know he's serious about making change. Me too. Here's the problem. If you're a general manager of another team, are you taking Sebastian Cossa or Trey Augustine and giving up a big-time player? I'm not. I haven't seen Cossa except in AHL games, and I haven't seen Trey Augustine except in college hockey games, in which he has not been the most elite player in those biggest games. Wisconsin this year, for example. So who in their right mind would do that? You can't sell that to a team or a fan base. We did just pick up the best goalie in the AHL, everybody. I know we gave up our second leading scorer, but we just picked up the best goalie in the AHL. We just did pick up a guy who is a 3-time semifinalist for the Mike Richter Award in college. We think he's going to be really good. But you gave up this guy? You can't do that. And nobody would do that, unfortunately. But I understand what you're saying. I think what you might be saying is maybe put it part of a package. Don't be afraid to put one of those guys in a package with others. I don't disagree with that, depending on the player. But if he wouldn't do it for Quinn Hughes, who's he going to do it for?
Exactly. I think that's everybody's question right now.
Right? And here's the other thing. We think Cossa will be, and he'll have to earn it, I suppose, at training camp. He better. And you would think his resume would earn it now. If he's going to go up there and be the backup goalie or the tandem with John Gibson, and you trade Trey Augustine, then what do you do? Because you got to have another one in the system too. Secondary's added some depth with the lines. I'm going to shift gears here before we get back into Michigan. A couple of mock drafts. 2 of them I really like. We'll get to that. I know it's that time of year, but this is what happens. I mean, a lot of mock drafts out there. So I'm willing to talk a little bit about it as we wait for Anthony Broom down in Indianapolis. This is X's and Bros. We're brought to you this hour by Avelo Air, Avelo Airlines, AveloAir.com on a Tullymore Tuesday. And we're glad you're with us on the Michigan Sports Network, whether it be on the great network stations throughout the state or streaming live on YouTube, on X, and on Facebook. We're back with more after this.
It's time to go on the court.
DraftKings Sportsbook is an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today and use code HUGE for a special offer when you sign up. That's code HUGE, only at DraftKings Sportsbook. This is Ed Kongursky from the Final Four. The second national championship in Michigan history is just that, historical. The Wolverines won their 6 tournament games by an average of 19 points and scored 541 total points, the second most all-time by a champion. Coach Dusty May told me in 25 years of coaching, he's never been around a team that supported, cared for each other, and learned from each other more than this one. They showed us how far those traits can carry a group of determined young athletes, united for one goal, united forever as national champs.
The Freddie the Pizza Man Foundation is dedicated to providing support to families and Michigan schools touched by autism. We invite you to join us in supporting these families and schools by making a donation at freddythepizzaman.com. With your donation, you can help provide essential resources that can make a real impact. Visit freddythepizzaman.com to make a donation and to learn more about the foundation's mission. That's FREDI, thepizzaman.com. Together, we can make a difference.
Hear that? That's the sound of saving a good deal more when you shop with M-Perks at Meijer. Some delicious Cosmic Crisp apples, money saved. Meijer Essential Paper Towels, that's money saved. Savings, savings, savings. Because every dollar spent is also points earned in M-Perks, which you can use to save on your next grocery trip or up to $1 off per gallon on your next tank of gas. At Meijer, we work hard to help you save a good deal more for a whole lot less. That's bringing more good to life. Exclusions apply. See mperks.com for details.
What's up, Michigan? You're listening to my good friend Shep. The Huge Show is coming up later today at 3, right here on the Michigan Sports Network.
it took a lot to get on the court, honestly, and to stay on there. I was dealing with a lot of.
18 after the hour. Welcome back. X's and Bros, Monday through Friday, 6 until 10. Glad you're with us. Matt Shepard, Andy McDonald with you as well. We'll shift off of the Michigan love fest from the national championship for just a little bit, and they deserve every single accolade that they get. There's no doubt about it, but we've talked about it all morning long, and we will pick it back up at 8:35 with Anthony Broom. I wanted to do this to show you something. There is the constant mock drafts that go out there, and that's fine. I mean, I always like to see where national writers and the local writers envision Detroit going. When you look at the national writers, because they're not as close to the team, but they understand the needs, oftentimes that's what they do. They predict needs. You'll see it. Offensive line, defensive line, secondary. I'm not saying those are wrong. I'm just saying they almost draft, especially it's so hard. It's so hard what those guys do in a 7-round mock draft. They will take what a team needs, not knowing obviously what the best player available they might have. But a guy like Tim Twentyman, who's been on the show quite a bit from DetroitLions.com, might have a different perspective because of his employer. He's employed by the Lions. So he's looking at some national, no doubt, has to look at some national mocks and decide whether or not the Jets go with Arvell Reese, or maybe they happen to go with a different player who Sonny Styles, same team, linebacker, stuff like that, off-ball linebacker. Still, at number 2, we'll see what happens with that. But obviously, you and I are always looking at what would be the Lions draft pick, and with Tim Twentyman, especially because of his association with the franchise. Here's who he picked at 17 for Detroit when he comes out with his 3.0. He's had 3 drafts. This is number 3.0. He writes, the Lions adding a starting center in free agency in Cade Mays and a veteran tackle in Larry Borum, who the Lions believe can compete for a starting right tackle spot if they end up moving All-Pro Penei Sewell to left tackle. Dan Campbell loves competition, and adding young tackle to compete with Borum and potentially be the right tackle of the future makes a lot of sense if he's available at 17. Detroit could also look to select a young pass rusher opposite Aiden Hutchinson and add some depth after the addition of veteran DJ Wanham in free agency. Detroit still needs to add numbers on the edge. His pick, Monroe Freeling from Georgia. He writes, the Lions love athletic traits in players, and Freeling has a 9.99 out of a possible 10 relative athletic score, which ranks number 2 out of the 1,519 offensive tackles dating back to 1987. Let me read that again. His relative athletic score ranks 2nd out of 1,519 offensive tackles dating back to 1987. That's incredible. 6'7", 315 pounds. Plus he's athletic and room to grow and learn from a veteran tackle. He'd give Detroit arguably the most athletic bookend tackles in the league. Also considering edge rusher Akeem Mesidor from Miami, Caden Proctor from Alabama, Caleb Lomu from Utah, Emmanuel McNeil Warren, the safety from Toledo, TJ Parker, the edge rusher from Clemson, Zion Young, the edge rusher from Missouri, Blake Miller, the tackle from Clemson, who I like, and Cassius Howell, the edge rusher from Texas A&M. Miller's a big dude too. He's athletic as well. I've been on the Monroe Freeling bandwagon for over a month now. Well over, for 2 months, really. I've liked him for a long time. I think coming from not necessarily big programs, but who those programs play. And when you get a guy coming out of Georgia, he's seeing defensive ends who are more oftentimes than not going to be in the mix for an NFL roster spot from Alabama, from LSU, right? From Tennessee, places like that in the SEC. So really like that. And I would be 2 thumbs up on that. I would love Monroe Freeling. I don't think he's going to be there. I think somebody will take him ahead of the Lions. But I would love that. Okay. CBS Sports comes out with their 2.0. And with the Lions at 17, they have them taking Vega Ioane. He's the guard for Penn State. They write their revamped line needs a mauler inside to help their running game, which keys the offense for this team. Ioane is the most complete guard in the draft. So he might be my favorite lineman here, Monroe Freeling. I like it, love them both. Kid 6'7", 322 pounds. It's not the sexy pick. I understand that. I absolutely love that pick. And to support it, Pete Schrager, who went from NFL Network to ESPN, does 2 mock drafts a year. That's it. 2 mock drafts, which is fine. I don't care how many you do. I'm just interested. His first one was released this morning. He has the Lions taking Vega Ioane. He writes, I'm not sure there's a more Dan Campbell player in the draft than Ioane. 6'4", 320, plays with a mean streak, didn't give up a single sack, was an All-American last year at Penn State. Nice fit for the interior for the Detroit Lions. That means you would have Larry Borum or a later draft pick at tackle. So it's either, I shouldn't say it's either or, but I wonder about this scenario. If you took Ioane and put him at left guard, that means Borum's your right tackle. Unless you drafted another one, drafted a tackle later in the draft. Considering all the other possibilities, I doubt that. But anyway, or do you draft Monroe Freeling and you have either Frazier or Christian Mahogany as guard? How do you go about that? It's a big question. I think of it this way, too. I look at Freeling. Freeling and Tate Ratledge played together at Georgia. Imagine them on the right side. And then Sewell on the left side, Cade Mays in the middle. Either way, whichever mock draft you looked at, and some of them yesterday, I noticed a lot of them had Caden Proctor because, well, Daniel Jeremiah has come out, and Jeremiah is of NFL Network. He came out and said that the Lions are in love with one particular player. They are believed to love Caden Proctor, who some consider the best prospect at the tackle position. He's super athletic. We know that. So he's athletic. Monroe Freeling's athletic. Ioane is perhaps the best at what he does. Okay. Proctor's a big, big man. I mean, it's amazing that he can be that swift of foot on top of all this. Via text, Shep, whoever Brad drafts, check the RAS score first. That will tell you who he will take. And he loves those Alabama players in the first round. Well, do you understand why you like Alabama players? I kind of do, right? They come from good stock. I'm not saying you draft them no matter what, because I know you're right now thinking, how about that Terry and Arnold pick from Alabama stock? And I get it. I guess I would counter with Jahmyr Gibbs and I would come Jamison Williams. Those guys have been pretty good too. Okay. I would have no problem with any three of those players. And here's part of the reason, especially with Yoenye and Freeling. I think you're going to put them there, and they're going to be good for you for the next, you'd have to extend them 10 years, especially the guard out of Penn State. I don't have to worry about that position for a long time. When we come back, Anthony Broom, we put him in a position to answer some good questions from Michigan's championship win last night. He joins us on the other side on X's and Bros on a Tully Moore Tuesday, brought to you by Avello Airlines and AvelloAir.com.
Huge here for Josh Garvey and his team at Dorn Mayhew, West Michigan. Now, they continue to grow. They got their worldwide headquarters in Troy, Michigan, on the east side of the state. They are worldwide. They are the leaders when it comes to accounting, CPA, and business needs. Simple and easy. Just Google Dorn Mayhew. And also, Josh Garvey joins me every Tuesday as we talk hoops with former Michigan and Cleveland Cavaliers head coach John Beilein. Tuesdays, 5 p.m., Josh Garvey, Coach Beilein, and myself, we talk Michigan, Michigan State, and the Pistons. Talking hoops happens all the way through the NBA Finals. And could you imagine if the Pistons are in the NBA Finals? If you ever have a hoops question for us, you can drop it at Huge Show on Twitter, The Huge Show on Facebook, and Talking Hoops every Tuesday at 5 p.m., presented by one of the world's top accounting, CPA, and business firms, Dorn Mayhew.
Hear that? That's the sound of saving a good deal more when you shop with M-Perks at Meijer. Some delicious Cosmic Crisp apples, money saved. Meijer Essential Paper Towels, that's money saved. Savings, savings, savings. Because every dollar spent is also points earned in M-Perks, which you can use to save on your next grocery trip or up to $1 off per gallon on your next tank of gas. At Meijer, we work hard to help you save a good deal more for a whole lot less. That's bringing more good to life. Exclusions apply. See mperks.com for details.
Van Andel Institute Purple Community is a grassroots fundraising network powered by the dedicated volunteers who support VAI's mission to improve human health now and in the future. When you raise funds through the Van Andel Institute Purple Community, 100% of the proceeds go directly to the Institute's research into diseases like cancer and Parkinson's, as well as VAI's science education programs. Learn how you can get involved at purplecommunity.org. Coming up later today at 3 on The Huge Show on the Michigan Sports Network, I'll deliver huge opinions on everything you're talking about.
it took a lot to get on the court, honestly, and to stay on there. I was dealing with a lot of mental issues today. These guys all leaned in on me and helped me out, helped me dig myself out the hole, man, and just continue to keep fighting. Chris, shout out to him because he was with me pretty much all day, all night, trying to make sure that I was even 50% able to play. And I did the best I could regardless of the outcome. But it feels really, really good to be a champion, to be on top of the world, man.
I bet it does. That's Yaxel Lendenborg. What an effort he gave despite the injury. Anthony Broom was in the locker room. If you want to see some fantastic coverage of Michigan's second ever national championship, make sure you follow Anthony Broom on Twitter at Anthony Broom. Last night he had interviews with so many different players. He came up with so many important nuggets about Michigan's win, and it was a long night for him. It's an early morning, and he was kind enough to get up for us. Anthony Broom joins us here on X's and Bros. Appreciate it, man, very much. The overall mood for Michigan last night, how do you describe it?
Well, thanks for having me, Shep. The first thing I'll say is that on the late night, it was late enough to where I debated whether waiting 45 minutes or so for the omelet bar to open at the hotel. So that's how late in that it was. But, I mean, the mood, it's, these guys have been so business-like every step of the way. And even when they won on Saturday night, they expected to be there. And obviously thrilled, overjoyed that they put themselves in position to do what they did Monday night. But the work was finally done. It was a release. It was a group of guys that, as early as this summer, I was at a U of M club of Flint, did a golf outing with Mike Boynton. Mike Boynton was there and Kyle Church was there, the two assistant coaches. And then they both had kind of said at the time, like, we think this is the best group of talent that we've ever worked with. So there was an understanding like that they could have been a national title contender, but I mean, they walk out of this season as one of the most dominant college basketball teams ever from wire to wire. And, it didn't quite, the last one, they had to earn every bit of what they scratched and clawed for against UConn. But those guys were up for it every step of the way. And whether it was a track meet, whether it was a fist fight, those guys, come hell or high water, we're going to find a way to win and get the job done. And when they were able to do so, they were happy to celebrate, but they also expected that as well.
Great tweet from you about 6 hours ago when you said Michigan played only 2 games this year under 65 possessions and lost them both. Duke, 62, Purdue, 63. They finished with 65 tonight, as in last night, and they needed every single one of them. I thought their defense, look, a lot of people bring up the offense because they scored more than 90 points in 5 of the 6 NCAA tournament games. But as you point out there, their defense is better than their offense. What does that say about Dusty May and this team in general when we're always focused on the points per game when it should be points per game against and field goal percentage against?
Well, I think Dusty has said this before, but I've heard this before where, the true mark of toughness on your team is if your guards are willing to rebound or not. And that's the fact that all those guys, even the Mari Burnett, who has had a reputation as more of a sharpshooter and things like that. But those guys are gritty. Those guys, did so many things. Dusty calls them invisible plays, things that don't show up in the box score. And, for as much as everyone clenched, after Roddy Gale missed 2 free throws late in that game, one of the most heads-up plays you'll ever see to seal it, where he grabs a rebound and just hurls the ball down the floor, so UConn has to chase it. They never even get a shot off to try to extend this game. So the awareness, the defensive prowess, as for as fun an offensive style that Dusty wants to play and has brought to Michigan over these last 2 years, these guys absolutely get after it on both ends of the floor. And it's, due in large part to, a front court that for the most part can guard, 1 through 4.
Right.
A couple of those guys like a Yaxel can guard 1 through 5. Merez Johnson will get switched onto a point guard. So, I mean, it's just a complete and total team buy-in that, they're not gonna make anything easy on anyone. And UConn got absolutely nothing at the rim last night, which is not surprising because this was one of the most elite 2-point defenses in college basketball, if not the most elite. And their attention to detail, their scrappiness, it's their competitiveness. It's so impressive.
Michigan scored 61 of their 69 points from the paint or free throw line in the win. That tells you something, as well. As Anthony Broom joins us here on X's and Bros. Follow him on Twitter at that, Broom with an E. The amazing thing about them is that I think, like you said, they can guard multiple positions. They can win in so many styles. I got to tell you, I thought if it was going to be a slow down game, and at times it sped up, but a least amount of possessions game, that it was going to favor UConn. I don't know if there's a determining moment, but I thought when UConn got to within 6 and then Trey McKinney found his way to a loose ball and shifted his feet and got a triple from the right wing, I thought that was the dagger. I thought that was the difference. That kid's really, really good. What's his ceiling, do you think?
Man, it's tough to know what the ceiling is because he already plays at such a high level. We always talk about the freshman wall, and he never hit that once. I mean, right. He may have had nights where he was 1 of 7, 1 of 8 from the floor, but when he checks into a game, you more or less trust that he's going to make a play or two that's going to help put you over the top. And that moment last night, I know he didn't have the offensive game he would have liked to have, but I don't know if he'll ever hit a bigger shot than the one he hit in that sequence. A lot of people actually are comparing it to Mikey Sainristil's interception in the football national title game, where you think the game is kind of in hand, but the other team is still alive. They're driving to kind of make it a push, and it flips in an instant. A 5-point swing. UConn misses a layup, or honestly, a touch and blur. I don't remember exactly how that sequence went, but to flip it like that, and he has so much more to give too. I think that he can get a little more athletic. I think that not to get too out ahead here, but next year's team I think is going to be a little more backcourt dependent. He and Elliot Cadeau have a chance to be maybe the best backcourt in college basketball next year. His steadiness. His ability to score at all 3 levels. This is not a mid-range jump shot offense. That's not the most analytically sound shot that there is, according to a guy like Dusty May. But when you have a guy who's a lead at it like McKinney is, you just let him cook. And that was his bread and butter at Orchard Lake St. Mary's, and he brought it to Michigan. And my goodness, I mean, he absolutely helped them win a few games in this tournament and separate in a few games in this tournament.
You know what social media is like. It's about people who are going to find ways to hate. It's just the way it works, unfortunately, in our society. The constant, this is the first ever team to win a championship with 5 starters as transfers, to me is ridiculous. I mean, Florida had 3 last year. This is the way the game is played. How do you view that type of critique from those who just can't seem to give credit where credit is due?
I mean, the critique would be, or the response to the critique would be, so Dusty May comes in and he literally has 3 players on the roster. He's got Will Cheddar, he's got Namari Burnett, and he's got Jace Howard. So what was the alternative other than to bring like, I know, up the road a bit, not to twist the knife, but whatever, I'm sleep deprived. I'll do that a bit today. They would have, I'm sure Michigan State would have preferred that Dusty just recruited a bunch of transfers and it took 6 or 7 years for them to be good. Like what Fred Hoiberg was able to do at Nebraska. But I think this is a lesson in, and I would never insult anyone's intelligence by suggesting that these guys are playing for free or simply came to Michigan simply for love of the game. Though I think a lot of these guys took less to be here, and they took a little less money. They took a little less, what would have been accolades for them, bigger stats for them. The ability to kind of do all of it, to a school like Michigan maximize the resources you have available to them. And based on what we've heard, I mean, I think at best, this is maybe a top third of the Big Ten roster spend. It's certainly not, near the top, like some of the reporting or some of the stuff out there might suggest, but the way that they've been able to maximize this while also not backing down on culture and intangibles and getting the right guys in. It's, just like Kurt Signetti at Indiana, it's a masterclass in not only bringing in talented players, but bringing in guys that in this day and age when there's a lot of me, you're bringing in guys that, it's team first. And with that comes individual success.
It is interesting. If your team doesn't do it, you're pissed off. If another team does do it and is successful, you're pissed off. So it's hard to win in today's college sports. I'm glad you brought up Kurt Cignetti. How come nobody's bringing that up? They don't. And the other thing is Elliot Cadeau left North Carolina because North Carolina didn't believe in him. Dave Morrow wasn't playing at UCLA. Axel Landenborg came from UAB, for crying out loud. It's not like they're getting the prime portal guys on a regular basis, although Landenborg was considered the best. Before I let you go, you see from which this team came. I thought it was very interesting when you and others were around Dusty May. He brought up little things that I think will endear himself to Michigan faithful even more, and that is things like, this is for the Trey Burke block. This is for John Beeline and other players who came before us. How important do you think that is to the Michigan fan base and players of the past, that he understands the history of the program and the frustrations that have led them to winning only one, now 2 national championships?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Dusty May is a guy that has immersed himself in Michigan program history. Certainly there's an awareness of it, given that that was the school he chose a couple of years ago when he kind of had pick of the litter of where he was going to go. And, it just goes to show too, like the first thing he did on the stage last night was not just thank those guys from the past, but, thank his team last year, the guys that helped set a tone, the Danny Wolfs, the Vlad Goldens, he is remarkably good at giving others praise and never really kind of taking it for himself. He always refers to his staff as we, and part of it too is that a lot of these guys were with him at FAU and they got all the way to the Final Four, and then this time they were able to advance past that and close the loop. It's when you have a guy who has that much reverence for the program history, I think it's easier to sell to guys, and that's why at the end of the day, no matter who calls it a super team or a bunch of highly paid mercenaries, they brought in a roster full of guys that played for the name on the front of the jersey, not the name on the back. And that name on the front means a heck of a lot to a lot of people, and to a lot of people who got this far but never finished the deal. So
why don't people like him? Why don't people like him? Because his players love him, obviously. Michigan's going to love him. But why is it the belief is, fair or unfair, and maybe I'm wrong here, you can correct me, that some of the coaches in the conference, or a lot of the coaches, don't like him? What is it?
Well, I think that's overblown too. I think there's one very prominent and obvious coach that doesn't like him, who has a couple of cronies in the conference that don't like him as well. But I think a lot of it has to do with, some of the things that are said by the guy up the road. And, that's got to irk him to no end, that the streak was broken by a team that, over Tom Izzo's career, a program that has been up and down and has faced some incredibly low lows. But, he might be able to learn a thing or two. He brought in 4 portal guys as well, and they weren't nearly as impactful as Michigan's were.
Anthony, great stuff all season long. I know it's a long night, man. Those are exhilarating nights as a reporter, as a writer like yourself, as talented a writer as you are. You enjoy those nights, but the next morning can be tough. So thank you for taking some time, and thanks for keeping people up to speed on some great information there on social media. Keep up the great work, my friend. We'll talk again.
All right. Thank you, Shep. I appreciate you guys a lot.
Yep, same to you. I mean, man, that's a yeoman's work, man. That is good work there, Andy. Appreciate it. That is not an easy thing to do. I'm telling you, man. You get an energy, you get a high, you get a rush when you're covering an event like that. The next day, and when you finally do crash, and it's a late one, the next day is just super long, and he's got to come back from Indianapolis after that and keep it up. So really appreciate his time very much, because he did a really nice job. Let's get to the final results of the poll question. We have one for you every single day. You can follow us on Twitter at XB Mornings, and that's how you find the poll question. And then I retweet it at Shep Matt on Twitter. Here's what we asked you last night or yesterday. If Michigan wins tonight, Are they the best U of M team ever? Yes. No. Still 1989. Or no, it's the Fab Five. Andy McDonald, what were the final results of the poll question?
For the poll question yesterday, for if Michigan wins tonight, are they the best UM team ever? It was yes. 80% of the vote went that way. So obviously, a lot of people are feeling like kind of what we were talking about this morning a little bit. I think there'd be no debate about the Big Ten thing that we were talking about. But it for the 1989 team, it was only 7%, and then for the Fab Five, it was 13%.
Oh my God, it's amazing to me. Honestly,
that'd be a little bit.
It's amazing to me that the Fab Five, who the culture situation is one thing, and it's not that they weren't really good players, because they were, but for anyone to think that that they were better than the 1989 team when one team won it and the other team did, I just don't get it. I can't figure it out. Yeah. Those people feel like second place is really a winner. That's nuts.
Crazy. It's crazy. I mean, the championship, it's either you don't hold weight on championships or you do. And I think that's kind of the difference. But
yeah, absolutely. So I guess there's really no debate now, but our poll question, I think, is a good one. Yesterday we were talking strictly about Michigan basketball. Now we're asking you, is this the best college basketball team you've ever seen? That's our poll question for today, is Michigan, now that they are national champions after beating UConn last night in an impressive fashion, are they the best college basketball team you've ever seen? Yes or no? You can vote, and we will give you the results right around the same time tomorrow. I want to thank Anthony Broom for joining us. Really good stuff on a very early morning after a really exhilarating night in which Michigan has won its second national championship, the first in the Big Ten since 2000. It is something else, man, and it'll be talked about for a long, long time. They may be your team of the year when it comes to the post-season 2025-2026 award ceremonies that a lot of networks have. They'll be under consideration, no question. So I want to thank Anthony Broom. I want to thank, of course, Andy McDonald, our producer and co-chair. And I want to thank Brett Hayes as well, but most of all to you for giving us a little bit of your Tullymore Tuesday here on X's and Bros. We'll be back with you tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock. Don't forget the huge show later on today. He was in Indy last night. He'll be talking about that event and how fired up he is from 3 to 7 later on today. We've been brought to you this hour by Avello Airlines and AvelloAir.com. Have a great Tullymore Tuesday, everybody.
Here for all my friends at all the ABC warehouse locations across Michigan. You want the best deal on the biggest TV for all the hoops in March? Then stop by your local ABC warehouse store, or you can shop online and pick up online or have it delivered at abcwarehouse.com. There's a ton of hoops happening when it comes to college and the NBA. Get the biggest TV at the best deal right now at your local ABC warehouse store.
It's time to go on the court. DraftKings Sportsbook is an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today and use code HUGE for a special offer when you sign up. That's code HUGE, only at DraftKings Sportsbook. This is Ed Kongursky from the Final Four. The second national championship in Michigan history is just that, historical. The Wolverines won their 6 tournament games by an average of 19 points and scored 541 total points, the second most all-time by a champion. Coach Dusty May told me in 25 years of coaching, he's